The altercation that Wike and the military officers had that was trending previously, according to a post that you made on social media, you stated clearly that Wike had no right to be where he was. Can you explain legally what boundaries exist for ministers or public officers when it comes to land or property enforcement?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. Good evening. First of all, I think it is important that we treat everyone equally in this conversation. So if the minister has a name, then the officer involved also should have a name. The minister's name is Nyesom Wike. The officer's name is Lieutenant Yerima, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. So let's keep it at Lieutenant Yerima and Nyesom Wike. Because they are both, everyone, all of us Nigerians, every citizen is equal. And I think it's important to accord everyone dignity in that manner. Now, yes, you quoted me accurately. And it's important to try and break down what transpired. People cannot understand a basic idea that actually possession is an interest in property. Okay? So if you are in possession of a territory, of a piece of real estate, nobody has a right to use force to drag you out of it without the order of a court. That includes a minister. That's number one. Number two, there is a very dangerous provision in Nigeria's constitution. You can Google it while you're there in your studio. It's section 33(2), paragraph A. A lot of people don't read it. The Constitution guarantees a right to life in section 33, paragraph 1. Section 33, subsection 2, provides the exceptions to the guarantee of the right to life. Under section 33(2)(a), you can kill lawfully in defense of property. When you are in possession and somebody comes with force to take you out of the property, and you resort to force to defend the property, actually under the Constitution, you are free. I could go into the history of this provision, which of course takes you back to colonialism and how we eventually got a human rights provision in the Constitution through the European Convention of Human Rights in 1959, after the Willink Commission report on the rights of minorities in what is now the Niger Delta. So if you want the history, I can give it to you. But the point is this. As a matter of law, not even a minister can just walk into a piece of land and do whatever they want without a court order. Okay? That's the first thing. But the second thing is, if you look at that video clip, let us even forget law and talk humanity and leadership responsibilities. If you look at that clip, can you count the number of guns that were there? All you needed to do was one person to have their trigger on their finger on the wrong part of a gun, and people could have been killed, including the man you call a minister. And you see, the most charitable anyone can be about the conduct of the man whom you call a minister is that he acted with absolute disregard for human life, including his own. And he is lucky that he met a young man who was not trigger happy. Because if anything had happened to him, the young man will still be alive, and you will still have a lot of people defending him. No minister is licensed to treat human life, including his own, with the degree of irresponsibility shown by the man whom you refer to as a minister. And no person who has that degree of reckless disregard for human life is qualified to be a minister. if I may say so. I yield.
Yeah.
Question.
So how does this clash between Nyesom Wike and the military reflect deeper issue of impunity in Nigeria's governance and institutions?
Now, do you know the number of ministers of the Federal Capital Territory we've had in Nigeria? Do you know when the first minister of the Federal Capital Territory was appointed? 1975, Mobolaji Adogun. Okay? The second minister of the Federal Capital Territory, I believe, was John Kadia. The third was Irota Musa, both under Shehu Shagari. The fourth was, I believe, Haliru Dantoro. Since Mobolaji Adogun, we've had 17 ministers of the Federal Capital Territory, including soldiers like Mama Vatsa, like Gadonasco, who did 2 tours of duty in the FCT, right? Including Jerry Seni, who was a lieutenant general when he was minister of the FCT, and who was only outranked by Sani Abacha, who was the head of state at that point. None of them could have thought of enacting this degree of madness. With none of them have we seen a minister, not even the soldiers in fatigues, walking in and destroying things or presuming that they can. And why is that so? Because there are legal mechanisms, talking about impunity, for enforcement. You have staff who do that. And where there is resistance, you get a court order, marshals, sheriffs, and bailiffs move in, and they enforce with police protection. That is how it is done. The minister walks in presuming that he is law, not understanding. And by the way, this particular minister claims to be a lawyer, and doesn't just claim to be a lawyer, he claims to be a member of the body of benchers. And doesn't just, and by the way, you've got to understand that the body of benchers calls itself the body of the greatest lawyers in Nigeria, or legally qualified persons in Nigeria, right? And it's not just that he's a member of the body of benchers, he's in that special category called life benchers. So for the rest of his life, he's a member of the body of benchers. And the benchers are the people who admit new people into the legal profession. And as I speak to you, they are responsible supposedly for discipline in the Nigerian legal profession. Can you tell me that this person whom you saw in that clip, you can make him responsible for discipline of maggots in a toilet? So let's be clear. The minister under the Land Use Act, and I don't claim to be a lawyer, but at least I know enough law to walk my way through this particular matter. The minister under the Land Use Act has powers, that are parallel to those of a governor in the states. But those powers, of course, is exercised by delegation on behalf of the president, in respect only of land administration, not as commander-in-chief, which we can get to subsequently. Now, in relation to the Land Use Act says what? That the minister has a power, a right, to enter upon the land and inspect it upon reasonable notice and at reasonable hours. So you ask yourself the question, did he give reasonable notice? Did he give any notice at all? And what was the hour? Okay? Now, if the minister gets resisted, the minister needs a court order to enforce. He cannot go and be telling anybody, but particularly a uniformed officer, you are a fool, you are this, because you then diminish your authority and your person and your office as a minister. And he can do a lot of things, actually, but what he's not entitled to do is to diminish either the office of the minister or a uniform purchased and given by the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, including the people of Nigeria. And that's exactly what he did. It was an act of utmost impunity for the minister to presume that he can walk into any place and do whatever he likes. And that is what triggered the resistance. And you see, a lot of people will tell you, sorry to go on about this. They will tell you that the soldier was not supposed to be there protecting private property. But that is, the situation actually is a lot more complex. You see, if this soldier had been in a place like where? In Calago, okay? Which is not too far away from where you are, I presume. Maybe. But Abuja is military territory. Okay?
Yes.
It is protected by the Brigade of Guards. That's it. Those are the people who guarantee the safety of Abuja because that's where the commander-in-chief is. And there are different parts of the job of the president, okay? So the president is head of government, he's a diplomat-in-chief, he's a sovereign and all, but he's also commander. So you have, and he's also the leader of a political party. And so he is called president and commander-in-chief. Those are two different jobs in one person. The job of the commander-in-chief cannot be delegated. There can only ever be one commander-in-chief at one time. Sadly, at this particular time, it is not Nyesom Wike. It is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And he commands his officers, his service chiefs, officers, and men. In Abuja, every soldier enjoys a presumption of regular command and regular deployment. So if you are going to be questioning whether a soldier, wherever you find them, in a restaurant, in the traffic, on the streets, in any habitation, as long as they are in uniform, if you're going to be questioning the mission of the soldier where you find them, you need a little more information and the humility to ask questions. So I do not know, and neither do you, nor did Wike, because he did not even have the humility nor the temperament to seek that information. I do not know whether or not that officer was in a private residence. By the way, a soldier in Abuja can be in a private residence doing official work, either because there are operations happening there or because there are state assets there. So the fact that a soldier is in a private residence does not mean that they are out of commission, out of duty, or on unlawful business. That requires inquiry. That did not happen. As long as, therefore, that soldier was in uniform in Abuja, the soldier was on duty and deserved respect for their duty station. If the minister wanted enforcement, he needed backing. If he had produced a warrant or a court order, my views would have been different, but he did not. And even ministers of the federation are subject to law. That is the point about what transpired.
All right, thank you, sir. Now, we've had in the news where we've seen the FCT minister, take possession of lands, demolish properties, and we're not sure whether he had the court order or not in those cases. Now, in this one, what do you think made him, walk into that particular property without a court order, seeing that by law he's expected to? Is it because he felt that he was above the law, or as an FCT minister he had the right to enter any land, and then was deferred by this naval officer, lieutenant?
If you don't mind, madam, can I ask you a question? Have you heard previously any of the, any of the 16 previous FCT ministers, not to mention the assortment of junior ministers that accompanied some of the others? Have you heard any time previously where any FCT minister walked into any premises to do what this guy did?
No.
That answers your question.
Okay, so it was a moment of shock to us Nigerians. Now, from a legal standpoint,
nothing that
where does the line fall between political immunity and outright lawlessness?
Nothing that Nyesom Wike does shocks me, because the man has proven now and again that he's unfit for public office. In the way that he acts, in the way that he talks, he's shown that he's unfit for high public office. Now, there is, he's no longer a governor, so he does not enjoy any immunity. Okay? Immunities are created by law. and he does not enjoy any immunity as a matter of law. The immunities, procedural immunities in Nigeria are enjoyed by president, vice president, governors, and deputy governors, period. Judges also enjoy some form of immunity in respect of things that they do while sitting as judges and acting as judges or magistrates. Those are the range of people who enjoy immunities within Nigerian law. And Nigerian diplomats don't even enjoy immunities within Nigeria. Their immunities are outside Nigeria when they are acting in respect or as duly accredited representatives of of the Nigerian sovereign. All right? So Nyesom Wike does not enjoy any immunity under law. What he carries on with is impunity, the sense that he is above the law. And that is the point about this, that someday when you behave like you're above the law, you get your comeuppance. And you can see that nobody of significance has really risen in his defense, because nobody can accept nor support that a minister of the Federal Republic should comport themselves in the manner that he has done and bring the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria into such disrepute as he has sought to do. And as I said, it's a firing offense. He is unfit to be a public officer.
All right, Professor Odinkalu, you referenced Section 33, subsection 2A of the Nigerian Constitution, which allows lawful killing in defense of property. Could you help Nigerians understand how this constitutional clause applies in this context?
It's very simple. Now, you've got to understand this. Let's go back a little bit. Property is a very contentious issue in international human rights law, and it's actually not there in the International Bill of Rights, precisely because it has a very contentious history with colonialism. Under colonialism, there were few white people who acquired all the lands, who set about acquiring all our lands, and in the process, they exterminated a lot of people. Colonialism was attended by the notion that the black person at the hands of the white person was expendable. All right? Now, and therefore, under colonial rule, property had a higher hierarchy than human life, because the human life that was liable to be expended was black life, the lives of your ancestors and mine who were blacks. And those lives, in comparison to white lives who ruled us as colonialists, did not matter. That was the structure. Now, in 1950, the Europeans adopted the European Convention of Human Rights. And among the countries that were involved in creating that was one country off the coast of Europe called United Kingdom, which also had colonies. So the major countries of Europe who adopted the European Convention all had colonies. Britain, France, Germany had previously had colonies until they were defeated in the First World War. Spain, Portugal, Italy, they all had colonies. And at this time, they had not actively started decolonizing. So the Convention of Human Rights protected Europeans and their properties in their colonies without necessarily protecting in equality the lives of ordinary colonized people like your ancestors and mine. But the United Kingdom and France did not immediately start applying the European Convention on Human Rights in their territory, particularly the United Kingdom. What did they do? They started testing the convention in other territories. The first place the United Kingdom started testing that convention was in Nigeria in 1959. It became the Bill of Rights in our constitution in 1960. One of the major rights that it guaranteed, different from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, what became the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, was the right to property. And in providing for the right to property, it created a right to kill in defense of property. That is how that provision entered our constitution, and it has been there since then. And if you read carefully in the structure of the constitution, you will actually see that the constitution retains that old valorization, that old hierarchy, which actually puts property at a slightly higher level than human life, because they presume that the human life that is liable to be wasted in defense of property is the life of people like you and I and poorer people who are not big men. They never expected that the lives that could be endangered by that kind of provision would be the life of a minister acting irresponsibly like Nyesom Wike did earlier this week. That is the point about that provision. That therefore, if you are in possession of property and somebody comes and seeks to take you out of the property without showing lawful reason or process with a court order or a court warrant, you can take out the person's life under that provision and you are safe. That must worry everybody. But that is what the minister invited by the way he conducted himself. And I must commend the young man, Lieutenant Yerima, for behaving with professionalism and with reluctance to default to violence. Because if he had behaved a fraction in the manner that the minister behaved, there would have been fatalities. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to promote that. And no minister should feel that they have a right to abuse people, defang people at their workplace, or even worse, to treat Nigerians, particularly Nigerians in uniform, the way the minister did.
That was really, really insightful. Please hold on that thought. We'll be back shortly for you.
All right. Thank you for staying up to this moment. Now, that's the first part of our conversations tonight with Professor Chidi Odinkalu. Do stay with us for the conversation and the continuation tomorrow. Signature TV programs continues shortly.